Hey, what's up guys, it's me Naren, and today I'm going to be critiquing Thakkar's 7.22 Pyraminx average that he sent to me. Although it's a rather decent average for him, I believe, it's full of flaws that I feel are quite easy to fix that could drastically improve your time. So that's why I feel that it's important that you send this video to me. So thank you very much, and without further ado, let's get into the first scramble. So this is the scramble you faced on your first solve. So I'll first be getting into what you did. So to point out your first immediate flaw, you solve your layer on the left, which is quite inadequate. You want to be solving your layer on the bottom, as it allows you to turn your U moves freely and to avoid rotations to do your last layer. So make sure to switch away from that. So anyway, keeping your layer on the left, what you did is you started by doing from this angle. You basically did this. So you started by doing these two tips, then you did a U prime, then from there you moved this, inserted this piece here, and you had a solution like that, solving this tip on the way. Now while this isn't a particularly bad solution, especially if you kept your layer on the bottom, there are a lot of flaws with this, so I could start pointing them out immediately. So let's go over the scramble again. The first and immediate thing is that, besides solving on left, is that you do your tips rather slowly. So try to make your tips fast. Don't do them individually, do them at the same time, like something like that. And from there, what I would personally do is, instead of from a kind of from an angle in which you kept your layer on the bottom, your solution looked something like this. Ignoring tips, you inserted this in here and then you did your last layer. And a much better solution would have actually been something like this. So as I mentioned before, a lot of times when you have big blocks like this, you should take advantage of them. And one way I see in doing this is by putting this edge into the only remaining slot, because you already have two blocks. You have your green and blue block ready and your green and yellow block ready, which means that you're one move away from a V already when you get the scramble. So you should be taking advantage of this to basically use block building to solve your last edge into its slot before it goes in, and that gives you a 3-move layer in this case. So by just doing green, what you can do is, as you already have experience on tracking, this shouldn't be too hard for you, but basically an R and U prime will get the green and red edge between the green and red centers. So as you can see, green needs to be in front, red on bottom. Doing an R makes the green need to be on the right and red in front, and doing this U prime from there makes the red need to in front and green on the right, which is what you want. So that makes this block, and with that you have another big block here, and doing another R will basically solve your layer. So what I would do is first solve these two tips like so, a push here and just a simple L prime type thing here. So, and from there to the R U prime R prime to solve your layer. Do a U prime to basically permute the centers to find out what your last layer is. And for this last layer, what I would recommend doing is checking out my video on last layer. For this, what you can do is, since you have this backward angle, you can do the following: R prime, L prime, U prime, L, U, R, and then flick the last tip, or not a flick, actually a push it with your index like so, and you're done. So this is the second scramble that you faced, and again, layer on the left is not the best, so I would suggest moving away from that. But regardless, let's go over your solution. So you did green, which is, in my opinion, at least the least optimal way to solve your layer. Personally, what I would have recommended is something like blue or yellow, which obviously has this block here, which would have made it a lot easier to do your layer. But anyways, let's go over your solution first. So you held the puzzle like this, started by doing these two tips. Not too bad. You did a U here and then an R2. R2s are not good on Pyraminx. If you ever have to do a 2 move, remember that you can do the inverse once. So in this case, an R prime would have been sufficient. Rotate it back here and you inserted this piece into there. Came back here and then you uh, inserted this piece into there like that. And for your final insert, you did this. And those basically all insert the green and blue, the green and red, and the green and yellow pieces into their slots. And then from there, you had this case finger tricked it rather awkwardly again. Remember to use the finger tricks like so to do this algorithm, because they make it a lot faster. You can execute it quickly like so. So that's the immediate things. Now let's go over some major improvements to the solve. So as you can see here, as I mentioned, obviously doing something like blue or yellow would have been a lot better. And choosing from blue or yellow also is important, because you want to choose something that's less awkward, because both of them are already better than solutions like green, for example. But what I would recommend is going for yellow. And how would you figure this out? Well, obviously you want to see something like how you can solve pieces in the motion of turns. So in this case, as I mentioned before, when looking at blue, you see that after doing these two moves, putting this piece in here to make the block and doing this, you have to do rotations and stuff like that to insert your last two pieces. However, this is not the case for yellow if you take a look at it. So with yellow, if you do this one move insert to make this block, from here you automatically have this insert. And how could you put them two together? Well, you have an L prime from this angle followed by an L prime UL. So instead of doing an L prime and an L prime again, just do an L and then do a UL. And that would solve your V, two pieces together. And I would suggest, like you do, which is one of your good traits with Pyraminx solving, doing these two tips first, then doing your LUL. And here, once you have this, rotating would actually not be that great. So rotating and inserting this in would not be the best. And the reason for that is doing an insert like so, maintaining your grip is very good, because you're not re-gripping and you're not rotating, which all waste time. So doing an insert like so, U, R prime, U prime, R. What that does is it lets you not regrip, and it also does one more thing. It helps you predict your last layer. So here you can see this is the only piece in the top layer that's not either yellow or that's basically, it's only yellow piece in the top layer, which means that you want to use it to your advantage. And at the same time, you have this piece over here. This is your green and red edge, which is basically the only edge you can see that's possible to put in this place rather easily. So you see, doing a U move here puts it into the slot where it needs to be, because it fits with the centers here and makes that kind of block. Inserting this piece like here, what it does is it allows you to track this piece and see where it goes, so that you can predict your last layer case. And in this case, it works out perfectly, because doing this U R prime, obviously the red comes here and the green comes here, which means that you have your blocks made. Doing an R prime moves it out of the way, and then doing a U prime R keeps it in the same position here, which means that you will have a solved piece here in your last layer. And the only two piece switch case is the two flip. So you have a predicted two flip over here, which means that as soon as you solve this, you can move directly into that two flip. And that would be my solution. Okay, so this was your third solution. It was rather simple. As you could see, you got your best time on this, which is a 5.37. And it's quite apparent why. As you can see, all the centers are solved, which is perfect for an LBL solver like you. However, the way you took advantage of it was once again subpar, I would say. So there were many ways you could have done this better, but first I'll be going over your solution as always. So let's begin. You once again chose green, so I'm not sure if you're, so at least so far I'm not sure if you only solve green, but make sure to do that. Being color neutral on Pyraminx is effectively essential. So you started by holding the puzzle like this, and you fiddled quite a bit on this tip, I noticed. So just like this, you had to do a U prime on the tip to solve it, and you spent quite a bit of time. Your hands were kind of covering the puzzle a bit, so I'm not sure if how you solved the tip exactly, but I'm quite sure that you attempted to do like a U prime of some sort, and you fiddled with it for quite a bit before starting with your solve. So wouldn't recommend doing that, but in any case, started with this U prime from there, and then after that you immediately did this R prime and inserted your red into there like that. So what I would recommend is, obviously since you're doing your layer on left, it's not that great, but instead of doing this basically R prime in your case into a 3-move insert like this, what I would have recommended is to do something like this. It is a 3-move insert without any setup move and is a lot faster, and it also in this case has the bonus of making this huge block over there, which what I would really recommend is choosing more efficient solutions instead of doing something like this. So anyway, moving on to your next. So you did a double rotation here, not very pleasant. You could obviously do something like this, although I would say that you were looking for this edge, so doing this rotation was a bit in, I guess, search for the edge. However, seeing this edge is not here, the only place it could be is on the bottom, so you should have immediately turned there. After that, somewhere in between, you basically solved this tip and inserted this green and blue edge into its slot, in the process taking out this sorry, you didn't solve the tip yet, but you took out this green and yellow edge in the process. Then you rotated down, which is a decent rotation, and from there you had a big fiddle here. You solved the tips something like this, and in the process it kind of locked up a lot here. Finished. You got a PLL skip there, which was kind of lucky, so it saved your solve and made it a 5.37, which was quite good. And now I'll talk about ways you could have improved that. So obviously from the solution you did itself, there were a lot of things you could have improved. So first, what I would say is, if you just did your solution like so, holding it like this, first doing that tip, then doing this insert, followed by this insert, and then this insert. Just doing that by itself could have been a 2. Like, I'll show you how I would have finger tricked it. And this is assuming that you don't keep your layer on bottom. Please try to switch away from that. But anyways, if we just do your solution, okay, maybe not a 2, but like a 3 or so. So that just shows, I believe, that your solutions aren't too bad. I would just say that you need to really work on obviously keeping your layer on the bottom, better finger tricks, and not locking up. You tend to lock up a lot on your Pyraminx solves, and I tend to feel that your magnets are very strong on your Pyraminx, so maybe this is something you want to do, invest in a better Pyraminx for your turning style. But anyways, moving on to what I would have done. Yeah, so for something like this, obviously all of these are basically equal, but none is really too much greater. But what I would have probably done is something along these lines. Green is rather good actually, so what you did choose was the right layer, and I'm beginning to feel that you only solve on green, which is why I would recommend doing other colors. Basically, don't limit yourself to just green. But anyways, what I would have done is held the puzzle like this, and the reason is because you can solve these two pieces in one motion into their slots, which is this piece going here, this piece going here, in the process taking out this green and yellow edge. So what I would have done is started by doing this, and in the process doing this turn. That makes this block. So as you can see, this red comes up here, blue comes up here, you have this block here, and in the process you insert this into here with a 3-move insert, and then move into an L, and now you can insert this piece into here and move this block down here. So what you have done is, in 1 2 3 4 5 moves, you have made 3 blocks and put 2 into the bottom green layer, which is exactly what you want. So 1 2 makes this block here. This piece needs to move here with blue over here and green over here, because it's between the green and blue center. That does that. And then from here, again, you don't need to do rotations. What you could have done is obviously a solution like this, and then that would have given you this. But from cases like this, even if you're doing LBL, it's important to recognize that doing a solution like this will preserve the block. So if you see easy L4E cases like this, try not to miss them. Preserve the block, and sometimes you'll either get a 2 flip or PLL skip, which is obviously pretty good for you. So in this case, doing this and your last tip again with your index. Okay, so this was your fourth solve. It was overall not too bad of a solution. Again, if you simply put your layer on the bottom, your solutions become a lot better. So in this solution, you finally chose blue, which is quite good. So obviously you don't want to just limit yourself to green. So what you did was like this: kept your you kept your you kept it in this permutation, and from there you solved this tip first with an R prime, and then did an R U prime L prime. So I quite like this. It's quite apparent to me, at least, that you try to preserve this block in this solution, which is quite good. So at least you have some knowledge of preserving blocks. So you not making your layer blindly is at least a step in the right direction. So you solve this tip, do an do your layer solution, like from this particular from this permutation you did an R prime U prime L prime, and then you started moving around with the cube. So here's what I don't like: after you put it on the left, you kind of did a double rotation there. Again, not good. Try to do single rotations back. But anyways, then you did your kind of classic insert. You put the blue and yellow into the blue and yellow slot like so, and from there now you had this green and blue green and blue edge oriented correctly but permuted incorrectly. So you took it out like this, and from there you inserted it. Then you had these two tips were unsolved in the process, so you ended up fiddling with these two before doing your two flip, which is actually locky by itself. So yeah, overall a decent solution. Again, not executed that well, and your layer on left affects things quite a bit. But anyways, now we'll talk about better ways to do this. So one immediate thing I notice is that your red has two blocks. Always look for blocks in inspection. It's very important to utilize all 15 seconds of inspection and plan out your blocks. So in this case, you see you have two red blocks, red and yellow, red and blue. So you want to preserve those. In this case, what I would do is something like this. Hold your puzzle like this and do these two tips. And then doing an RU prime makes this block here, and that sets up perfectly for this third block, because doing this R makes this piece, which is your red and green, go into its slot over here. So doing an R U prime to make this block, you already have this block here, and then instead of doing this and then having to rotate, you push down on this large bar here like so, and now you just have a two flip. So literally you have your solution. If you just looked harder for like bars in your solution, you would have noticed that your solution minus tips is 1, 2, 3. You're 3 moves away from a two flip, which is your solution literally just took longer to get to the two flip. So obviously this is a way better solution that you should really just use your inspection more wisely, and you should really plan block building and using your blocks effectively. I think even before you learn block building, if you just use the blocks you get in your Pyraminx scrambles, your solves will automatically improve a lot. Okay, so this was the scramble you faced for your last solution. I'm not going to be going over the last layer too much because it faced many of the same issues that the previous solutions faced, rather repetitive, so I won't be going over the same thing again. But basically what I just wanted to point out was your inefficient layer building. So what I saw you do in the solution is first you fiddle with the tip, make sure to do your tips a lot better with just straight and easy flicks like that. From there you started by doing this, you broke up this block, which is not good, and you moved the center in the wrong way. I'm not sure if that's because you basically miss one look or something, but you did an L prime instead of an L, then did an R, then you rotated to keep your layer on the left, and then you just did this L prime. So that's something to look out for and make sure you make more efficient. Now I'll be going over what you could have done better. So in this solution, once again, you can see that blue has a pretty decent block here, and you want to use that block to the best of your advantage. Obviously, another thing is that green has the same block and you want to preserve that. And when you look into green, you realize that it has something really promising. So after holding the puzzle like this, you can see that you want to make this block here, right? But what you notice is that after solving these two tips, doing an R also makes this block. So after doing these two tips, doing an R and a U prime, doing the L prime makes your V. You can now rotate. It's a rather awkward rotation. Insert this piece and then do that. So that's it for this critique on Ram Thakkar. Obviously, this is my first time doing it, so I really hope that you guys can give me some feedback on how to improve, because I know that I probably could have done a lot of things better in this. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I hope, Ram, that you learned something from this and how you can improve from this. Obviously, the facts are that you don't want to be doing your layer on left, put your layer on the bottom at all times. Next, you don't want to be doing unnecessary two moves on your tips and your normal side moves. And most importantly, you want to turn smoothly without locking up. You want to use good finger tricks for your last layer. I don't want to see any of this kind of stuff. You want to have nice and easy finger tricks so that everything flows very well. And finally, incorporate turns into your layer building, and make sure that you use block building. Don't just insert pieces one by one. So yeah, that's about it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.